Welcome to Marketing Rebels Breaking Business Barriers. You've joined us for a special series called Marketing Momentum for Mental Health. And we have Dr. Allie here today, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shauna. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so I am Dr. Allie. I am the owner or CEO, as Shauna likes to remind me, of Connection Squared, which is a private practice and coaching agency that really addresses the challenges of being a neurodiverse adult, right? Whether that's social skills, dating, business communication. How the heck do I keep a schedule? That's the kind of stuff I love to talk about. And because it's stuff that honestly I have struggled with and tried over and over to find things that work. It's something I'm obsessed with trying to help with in other people. Oh my goodness, my mouth today. And so that is why I am so excited about this conversation, because I just think, how can mental health not be a part of marketing? Like, I think as a therapist, my feed is always everything around like ways to improve yourself and things that are wrong with you and all this stuff. And I just can see how that could feel so overwhelming to people. So I love that you're talking about this. And I also just love that you're talking about, wow, when I became an entrepreneur, did all of my mental health stuff just pour out of me? Like, my God, I had no idea I had so many like abandonment and rejection sensitivity challenges and honestly, time management stuff. It all just sort of came out, and all the while trying to keep this like brand or face of it being together. And so one of the things I love about working with you, Shauna, is I really think like for you, marketing's so authentic, but it's also so imperfect because we're not perfect. You don't want us to be our imposter syndrome version. And I think that's a journey I've been on for a long time, like closing that gap. Like, I don't have to be an imposter. I can just be real. And some people enjoy it and some people don't. And that's totally okay. So that was my very wordy intro.
No, I love it, because you know what, you shed light on a lot of really important topics that are top of mind for all of our viewers, people who are just sitting here going, okay, yes, but, because there's so much always going on within and around ourselves that we need to navigate, and nobody talks about that. They say, work on your mindset. And it's like, what?
Oh, for sure. If your mindset's probably garbage, if underneath is all this untouched like trauma and challenge, I mean, it's hard to have a positive mindset if everything underneath you is bubbling up.
And even if, and this is something that actually I bumped into a lot, is just this idea that like, okay, I have a great mindset, and there are challenges that I need to overcome. And this was actually really crucial for me. And I like one of the things you brought up, we're going to talk about many of them, but one of them you talked about was time management. And it's not something that we've necessarily touched on yet when it comes to navigating mental health, because we think of time management as like a tactical tool, like as an extrinsic thing, but it isn't always that way for everyone. So a lot of times that can like fester.
I'm going to say my difficulty with time management has led to most of my mental health challenges, right? So like, I am more anxious because I'm not getting something done. I'm not delivering for a client. And then I'm in a shame spiral. And then I go down the like, oh yeah, I maybe wasn't told that I was enough as a child. And I don't like sitting in any of that for too long, because then it feels a little victim-y and I want to move forward. But really, if I look at like the source of many of my challenges, it is a lot of that executive dysfunction and time management.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And time management, now there's a wide spectrum of how people function within that concept. On the more average perspective, you're looking at people who just need to learn tools to keep themselves accountable and moving forward. Awesome. That's great. That doesn't mean that if you don't yet have the tools, that your experiences are invalid when you feel overwhelmed, when you're feeling frustrated with not meeting deadlines or unable to manage those things. Those feelings are still very valid. And access to those tools are going to be really important and helpful in rejuvenating your mental health in that capacity. But for other people, I know your journey with ADHD and my recent journey with ADHD is such that time blindness exists. It is
Oh
real.
my goodness, it does. Yes.
So no amount of alarms, because the alarm will go off, and for like a week or two, it's like, yes, I've solved my problem, but then you ignore it because you don't consciously. So there's a whole other aspect that goes along with this. I recently saw a reel where the couple has this conversation. It's my favorite reel. I reference it to myself all the time because it's so helpful. The couple's having a conversation about, you only have 5 minutes to get out the door. I don't know why you think you can take a shower. And she's like, well, it's just 5 minutes. He goes, that's 300 seconds. She goes, oh, hold on. Wait. No, it's not. And he goes, yes, it is. 5 minutes is just 300 seconds. She goes, well, see, if you told me I had 300 seconds, I'd grab my keys and get out the door.
I know. It's, one of the things that's helped me a lot with this, I used to do this all the time. I'd get a workout in and then I'd be like, oh, I don't want to be like dirty on camera. Whereas I'd be way better off just putting in dry shampoo and leaning in. But no. I would try to take the shower. You can't take a 10-minute shower and then also try to look presentable to be on Zoom in 10 minutes. It's impossible. So I literally have this little notebook that I call like Allie's finds or like Allie's thoughts, which is literally like, Allie, you cannot shower before this client. Stop trying. Or Allie, you cannot do 10 things before you get on an airplane. Stop trying. Because I would make this mistake over and over and over and over. And I had to really like take a step back and be like, you're right. There was no alarm that was going to fix that. This was like a mental thing I had to work through.
Yeah. And that exists across the board because we all have these ideas of, oh, well, that's doable, or I can do that. And a lot of times what I'm seeing is, as a function of potentially poor time and project management, we wind up biting off more than we can chew.
Yes. And Shauna, I don't know if I think you relate to this, but a lot of the neurodivergent women that I work with relate to this, is we are chronic overachievers to begin with. We get a lot of worth and achievement for sure, right? But when you look at some of these women's to-do list, it is like, I don't know if an army would complete that in a full day. Like, in what world did we really think we were going to get all that done? That was a massive business shift for me, right? The whole like, and also accepting like that I don't have to do all of my thoughts. Like, I have so many awesome business ideas that I really had to start saying to myself, I can't touch them until my current business is somewhat streamlined. Like, I can't follow that dopamine right now. So that's another thing. It's like I have something called like business repository, and like, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I won't, but at least it's out of my brain. And I'm not, obviously creating a new business is way more fun than super bills for my clients.
Yeah.
But that's not fair. I can't not give a super bill to someone that needs it, So really trying to figure out what that was too is taking time.
Absolutely. And I think this is really important for people to just conceptualize, is that like we talk about things like distractibility or what did you just say? Chasing the dopamine. This is really, really important. And actually I'd like to conceptualize this again. I like to put things into perspective because one of the things that I like to approach with regards to marketing is the idea of imposter syndrome, shiny object syndrome, all of these things. These are like basic level, everybody experiences them things. And then you've got people who potentially have a neurodivergence or some other contributing factor, which could come in the form of chronic illness, mental, physical, emotional, etc. And that like exacerbates those things. That's not to diminish, again, I want to say that is not to diminish the very real experiences of imposter syndrome and shiny object syndrome, etc. But having RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is like having imposter syndrome on steroids.
Totally.
To leave a call and think, oh my God, they hated me, even if it went well.
Oh God, yes.
Is huge. And so I just want to put this into context that like, no matter where you fall on that spectrum, nurturing your mental health and navigating that space with the support of a community, acceptance, grace, and understanding is what's going to get you to the other side, which really is the concept of water the grass on your own front lawn, and it'll be okay. Take care of yourself, nurture yourself.
I think that's so true because, one of the things that if we kind of bring it back to mental health and marketing, I've noticed sometimes for me personally, like I'll be listening to someone who's maybe talking about somatics, right? Which is the connection of body and brain or regulation. And they're highly dysregulated in the reel that they're filming, or they're highly dysregulated in the blog that they're giving. And it feels, for me as a neurodivergent person, that like really screws me up because I'm like, I'm going to you for help. And now I just feel like this incongruence that I can't get past. And I think to your point, like really talking about, I really believe in talking about stuff that you have personally experienced or you've researched like crazy and you really have a high understanding of, because that's what's helpful for people. It's not helpful to hear the 1 month into the journey where it's still really messy. That can be really hard if someone else is also hearing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, on that note, when you're showing up in your business, because you're serving people in a very direct and vulnerable space, right? And I believe you're never not marketing. So when you're in that space, you need to market yourself in a certain way. And those feelings of dysregulation, those feelings of like intense mental load and pressure and stress and frustrate, all those very real experiences are there. They don't just leave. We know that. What are some ways that you can maybe share that helps you to regulate yourself before entering that sort of vulnerable space?
Yeah, I think one thing that we sometimes forget to do, you can own that something is like going on, right? Obviously, like if I'm having a truly bad mental health day, as a therapist, I think it's important, like just cancel. You may not actually be able to help people, like own that. But also, I've literally texted clients before. And again, I think I have such great clients that are also neurodivergent and very good at being in the flow, but I'm going to need 20 minutes. I just need to let my dog out because if I don't, I will not be able to give you the full attention you need. Right. So really owning what's happening. But then I think, one of the things I do before getting on with clients is showing up in any way. This is, my husband just walked in and will probably laugh in the background at me, but I have a trampoline. And I really like jumping on the trampoline because it regulates you and it gets lymphatic drainage and it just feels good. Sometimes I'll go just cuddle with my puppy, right? Like I try to take intentional, honestly, mind breaks just to feel like I'm back in my body. I also, having ADHD, it's sometimes hard to pay attention. And my job is literally to pay attention to people, right? So I might have a fidget in my hand. I might have a tennis ball under my foot, right? Like
That's
just
right.
that I know will just keep me engaged and listening. And I also like call that out too. I really am trying to normalize like everyone fidgets. Like let's just own this. And it's
Yes.
totally fine. Like as long as you're not actively distracting everyone around you.
Right.
Yeah.
So just for some perspective, this is being recorded as an audio and visual. So some people are going to be joining us on YouTube and some people will be joining us on socials and on things like Spotify where you can only hear. So for some perspective, I'm holding up a pen and my pen has a lid and I will frequently unattach the lid and reattach the lid. I do not have a clicky pen.
Yeah.
Because that would be distracting for my microphone. All you would hear is clicky, 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 clicky. That would just be ridiculous. But to be able to detach and reattach my lid allows me to focus better. And just normalizing that sort of thing, I think, is really powerful. In fact, I have a colleague, a friend and colleague of mine. Again, I've said this before. I want to say it again. This is not my word. This is a word from one of our other guests, Lindsay Harl-Kadatz. She taught me it. It's a friend and colleague of frolic. I picture like frogs on a lily pad, like working at laptops. It's beautiful. And
I think most of my coworkers are frolics.
They're frolics. Yeah.
And yeah.
Right. It's such a good word. So she taught me, what did she teach? oh no. So she taught me that word. Another colleague of mine, I went to an event of hers, and on each of the tables was a bucket filled with quiet fidget toys. And I just want to put it out there that like normalizing something like that is so powerful for accommodation, for inclusivity, for just never mind like having some sort of mental health junk that everyone has in their head. The feeling that it's okay to do that solves like I don't know this so many percentages of our problems in the first
Think
place.
about the comfort it gives people to realize, like, wow, I can just be a little bit more me. Like, there's really something so powerful about that. I mean, therapy is already supposed to be a place that you shouldn't be judged, obviously. But I mean, like other areas in life, having a fidget basket or, I think it's just so powerful also to like own, like, I also think this is a really big one. If a client brings something up and I don't know it, before I think I would have been like, yeah, like I wouldn't want to admit, but now I'm just
Fake it
like,
till you make it type of
for
situation.
sure. But
Yeah.
like now I'm so much more like, I've heard that concept. I know that it's a more popular term in the UK. I don't know a ton about it. I'm a podcast person. So what I'll probably do this next week is like absorb a bunch of podcasts about this topic and then we can talk about it. And most people prefer that more.
Absolutely. It's real, it's authentic, it's true to you. And so there are a few things that I've jotted down here that I think are really cool that I want to dive into. And you can take your pick as to which one we kind of do first. One of them is when you said about your appointments, if you're really having a rough day or if you're really in your feels or whatever that experience is for you, to just cancel. That concept, what I titled that was permission to not.
Yeah. Permission
That's
to not.
huge. So that's the
Huge.
first thing that I'm thinking of. The next thing is the idea of intentional mind breaks. I'd really like to touch into that again because I think that for you is really important because you're very holistic in the way you approach things, and that mind body connection is vital to literally our survival. And then lastly, I think this sentence, and I wrote this down as a quote. I can be just a little bit more me.
Yeah.
It's huge too. So of those three, I'm going to let you take your pick. Permission to not, intentional mind breaks, or being just a little bit more me. What would you like to dive into?
So I think the permission to not is really about how you're going to set up your environment and practice, right? So everyone does things differently. I have a no-show policy in the fact of like, if I'm sitting there for you, you don't come on for like 30 minutes, I'm going to charge you, barring like some crazy emergency.
Right.
But I don't have, and other people do, a 48-hour or 24-hour consultation policy because I really do believe that neurodivergent people, your energy levels flow differently. And so I try to give that respect to my client so they also will give back to me. And just so everyone, I just want to say, if I ever don't, I offer reschedules. If I'm ever like, I cannot, I do always offer a reschedule. I also have been trying to track that a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I typically want a mental health day at the end of every quarter. So like in March, I tend to really need one. And then in June. So I'm also really toying with creating a practice where I'm off maybe like the last week of March, last week of June, it's already in there and it's off. So then I'm not rescheduling on a bunch of people.
So that's actually, just to let you know, if you want to do some additional reading, and for everyone who's watching and listening, that's actually a really important component of the 12-week year. I'm sliding away.
12
Coming
weeks.
back.
I don't think
12-week year. Right here, the 12-week year by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington. Okay. This is an amazing book.
Putting it on my list.
I'm telling you, this one, combine this with the One Thing by Gary Keller, and you've got essentially what I do for my clients in their marketing management and their how they show up in the world. At the end of your 12 weeks, you take a week off. It's scheduled, it's planned, because you will have already planned your next 12 weeks. So you get that 13th week essentially as a vacay week, which is really important.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah,
it is so cool.
That is one thing I personally, and I think other business owners can relate to this, is I think I do a good job of taking care of my own mental health because I feel it's so important. First of all, it's like what I value and live by and made a career in, and to show up for my clients. But I think one thing that I don't address enough, which still hangs out in the mental health category, is protecting my ability to have time for creativity,
Right.
have more time for play and just joy, right? And that does also make you a better business owner, clinician, a better brand that you're marketing, right? And so that week really could be more of that. You know, I'm pretty crazy, to be honest, about getting in a morning walk so I can show up well. But even as we're talking, I'm like, I kind of want to shift my mindset to like, maybe I'm taking like 2 or 3 walks because they bring me joy, not just so I show up as a good
Yes.
clinician. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that shift in dynamic, that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want to just also put a little asterisk next to that week every quarter, by saying that that's not enough. That
Mm.
week is a really great addition to your daily habits and how you can nurture and love yourself, which is a great lead in, PS, to those intentional mind breaks.
Yes. Okay. So it's funny, right? All I wished for was an all online practice. I was like, oh my God, I'll never have to drive to anyone's house. It's going to be amazing. And I have it. And I find myself so drained. And
Right.
I think we all can deal with this, right? Like online is wonderful. Online also means that you could work every hour of the day if you wanted to.
Mhm.
You could schedule everyone back to back. And so I had to do it wrong enough to be like, whoa, you need lunch. Like you should take lunch, right? Like a full hour of lunch. You don't have to eat for the whole hour, just you need an hour, right?
Mhm.
And so I also was really loose on my boundaries of like 50-minute sessions. That's something I'm still working on. But
Right.
having that 10 to 15 minutes between clients to just whatever that is. Sometimes it's I move my body, sometimes it's I start laundry, but it has nothing to do with the client essentially, right? Like it is a time where my brain is just blank. Sometimes I put on Love is Blind for 10 minutes. But it's like, ooh, nothing of value is going in here. I'm sorry, Love is
Nice.
Blind. But it's, it's like I actually love that show. It's nothing. I think that show is really fun, but it's not anything that I have to like critically
Right.
analyze, and I can just chill.
So
Yeah.
working in those more than moments, I'm just gonna push this, um because so many times we talk about the little moments, and in this series we will have talked about many little moments,
Yeah.
and those are valuable. Do not discount the value of that, but I challenge everyone to make more than little moments
Yeah.
of time for you to just reconnect. Jump on the trampoline,
Yep.
snuggle with your dog, watch
Mhm.
Love is Blind, whatever that looks like for you. I mean, for me, honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. um I love Harry Potter. We know this. It's in my background. I just love it. And I know every word. I should be like a backup because I know the whole script to the movies too, right? I love the books. I'm a book person first, but movies second. And so I'm here, like I could just watch Harry Potter and just recite all of the lines without consciously being there. And that would be a great checkout. Like I just could check out for 20 minutes or whatever.
Really,
That would
yeah.
be really neat.
I also don't underestimate. I say this to a lot of people. Like, I think we're taught so often, like having sound equals distraction, but for some people, it doesn't actually. So sometimes, even when I have a client, I'm obviously not watching TV at all when I'm with a client, but the TV might be on really low, and something about that, like body doubles me, or I might have like classical music really low, whatever. Like start to look at like what does help you just sort of like stay more in the zone while you're doing what you need to do. I think that's important.
Man, you're so good. Look at this. What does that quote? I can be just a little bit more me. So this
Yeah.
is the idea of not there is no one size fits all. Somebody might say the best way to connect with yourself and rejuvenate is to meditate silently. That's not going to work for everyone, and it's okay.
And that's okay. Right. And I think that's really important too. Like, I don't want anyone to take away from this that we're saying that's bad advice or that's bad marketing. Cause
Right.
actually, mindfulness has like so much research. It's a
Yes.
phenomenal thing. Um, but it could just look like sometimes when I'm jumping on the trampoline, I'm saying things I'm grateful for. I'm technically doing mindfulness. It just might not look like what you have seen, right? So I think that's
Right.
important too. Like mindfulness or anything like that is really just intentionally like slowing down for a second. And that could be on a walk, that could be something more guided,
And
but it's
slowing down, again, slowing down, not necessarily physically,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mental and emotional
Yeah.
slowdown. You can absolutely slow down physically, but the idea here is just like mental, emotional, physical, spiritual,
Yeah.
whatever way makes sense to you, slow
Right.
it down.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for me to be completely still sometimes. That will add to my anxiety,
Oh
and
my
then I won't know what to do
God.
with myself. So I crochet, or I'll go for a walk, or I've got a balance board, and that helps my mind to
Yeah.
slow down because it keeps my body focused on something different.
Yeah. Oh my God. Being told to sit still is like my worst nightmare.
Yeah. And that's okay. And for some people, a person who can't sit still is challenging. So they want to sit still and it helps them to calm down. That's okay. The
Yeah.
point is, it's okay to be you, to do things your own way. When I'm working, I know people who, when they work, they need it completely silent. For the essentially, since it came out, when I go and I hunker down to project work, I'm listening to Taylor Swift Midnight's 3 a.m. album.
I listen to Taylor Swift all the time. It's Taylor Swift or like brown noise, pink noise, green
Mhm.
noise, which is just different, tones in the
Yeah.
background. I'm sorry, I'm getting this weird sun glare. There we go. Or I agree. Some of that just really calms me. And Sean, I just had another thought when we were talking
Mhm.
about also like with when you're thinking about marketing and being marketed to, you're allowed to say that strategy won't work for me, right? So like a
Mhm.
lot of times with ADHD, you tend to get thrown a lot of planners because everyone knows you have poor time
Yeah.
management. I'm using
I have a
quotation marks.
collection.
Right. And same. I love planners. I love paper. I love stickers. I love all the things. I am so that girl. And I am allowed to say, like, that's cute. That's not going to work for me. And there's nothing wrong with what that person is saying either. I think that's important. I just know myself well enough to be like, that's not going to work for my brain.
Yes, absolutely. And I like that too. Actually, I know myself well enough to,
Yeah.
if you can give yourself the opportunity to reconnect with who you are.
Mhm.
And this is actually, I've said this innumerable times, and I wouldn't be able to tell you whether I've said it in the series yet, but I've definitely said it elsewhere. But it's that concept of the two cities, authenticity and simplicity. If you can simplify your world enough to reconnect with who you are, it then makes it easier for you to simplify further
Yeah.
and reconnect more deeply with who you are. And that cycle allows you to embody your most truest form and know whether something is or is not right for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference in how you're showing up in life and business, which then makes a huge difference in how you can regulate your own mental, physical, emotional health.
Yes.
That's amazing. The other thing I wanted to go to, we're jumping all over the place, but that's kind of classic. The the permission to not. Where I'm going to go back to that because you talked about tracking your cycles yearly. We talked about the 12-week year and
Mhm.
incorporating those moments, and prolonged moments of reconnection, mind and body. We also have talked in the past about tracking cycles as women
Oh, God.
and the importance of that for
Yeah.
our mental health. So men, join us. Keep track. Okay? You need to be here too because there are women in your life, okay? So this is important. Women, you can resonate with this. We have monthly cycles and they're going to impact our physical, mental and emotional health and
Absolutely.
our energy and output within that space.
Absolutely.
How would you start that conversation?
I think it's hard, right? Because we're not in a world where you could maybe take off the week that's happening. It would be great, but it's just not, it's a very hard. I think, one thing with starting to really track and understand my own cycle was a lot of forgiveness, right? Like I would have days where I would just be like, oh God, I hate everything, I hate everyone. And then I would get my period 2 days later. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, that's
That
why.
tracks.
But for 3 days when that was happening,
Yeah.
I would like spiral. Like maybe maybe I shouldn't be a therapist. Maybe I'm not even that nice of a person. Like I mean, really crazy
Yeah.
stuff. And so like, I think as simple as it is, knowing like, oh yeah, you're getting your period, it's so much easier to be like, yeah, you're just gonna see your clients today. You're not doing any extra work, and it's fine. Like, who cares? It's fine. Just like do the absolute bare minimum you have to, and that's it. And like on those days when I know they're coming, I may put like a nice top on, but the rest of me is a mess, right? And like
Yeah.
me knowing that and giving that permission, I think is really important. As opposed to, I mean, really a large part of my life, it was like, oh, whoa, that's happening, which is crazy. But now as an adult, I'm like tracking and more aware of what goes on. Yeah.
Yeah, and this sense of being present with yourself. And there's also a flip side to that, and that is to leverage the times when you're energized,
Right.
when you are balanced,
Right.
and giving yourself permission. Well, if it's permission to not on one side, what is it? Permission to be on the other side?
Yeah, kind of. I've been talking to my husband about this more. Like, I'll be like, babe, I'm actually having one of those days where like I'm really like just in it. I'm gonna keep going because that probably means 3 days later I'm doing the bare minimum. And I think I used to stifle that more because I would be like, oh, it's 7 p.m. I should be having dinner and watching TV with my husband. Not should. I mean, I enjoy doing those things with him.
Yep, yep.
But I've started to lean in more to like, wait, you still actually have a bunch of energy and you have a lot to do. Like, let's just keep going with that.
Yeah.
Because you probably won't have it again in like 2 to 3 days.
Right. And so there's something to be said about flow rather than what people often try to aspire for is that balance.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess for your mental health and for especially for the people who you're serving and for the other people who are like us in this entrepreneurial world, navigating the ups and downs, navigating the waves of being an ambitious person
Yeah.
who wants to make an impact, differentiating between balance and flow.
I really like that and defining what it is for you. Like for me, and this schedule wouldn't work for a lot of people. I actually operate a lot better with 3 12-hour days. So that might mean that I'm seeing 8 or 9 clients, right? Saying that out loud is probably making other therapists like cringe because I think I want to say the recommendation's like 5 or 6, I can't even remember, but that works for me because once I'm in flow, barring something really going wrong, I'm pretty in flow. Like I'm like, all right, this is what I'm doing today. I can do this thing. I like this thing. It's so much harder. Paperwork hour doesn't work for me. You take me out of clients and I'm supposed to do work for an hour and then go back to clients. Nope.
Yeah.
But all Friday morning to kind of do what I need to do works for me. I might procrastinate 2 of those hours, but I have all of Friday to get done all the stuff that the clients need.
That's amazing. And I think the summary really of some of these circumstances is that in order to nurture your own mental health, regardless of what's going on within and around yourself, it's important to stay in tune with what works for you.
Yes.
And to stop caring about what other people think.
Right. Right.
That's huge. Now, Ali, I want to ask you then, I mean, that's pretty summative as it is, but do you have any extra thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience that might take them to a new realization that we haven't yet covered today?
No, I just think, again, Shauna, like the whole point of this series, right? I think it's beautiful is like, you can't really like separate yourself from your mental health. And I'm also someone that loves like communication and mental health comes out in your communication, right? How you're feeling might come out on your face or your body language or your tone. So really like cleaning up your garden, right? And looking at what's happening. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I believe everyone's on a journey, but even just knowing what's disrupting your garden is important. If you don't know why you're having large reactions to some things, you're not going to be able to try to find strategies. So really looking at that's important. And yeah, that's kind of my summative thought.
I love that. And now I was taking notes constantly while Ali was talking. So I'm going to take a minute to let you guys all know that if you want to talk to Dr. Ali, go to LinkedIn, search her name. You're going to find her there. She's amazing, and you definitely want to connect. That said, the idea that it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, perfection doesn't exist. So there you go. You have it. Step into it. Get messy. Do the Miss Frizzle thing. Get messy. Make mistakes.
Miss Frizzle.
Right?
Yes.
That's right. I love her. So with that, I want to invite you all to not only connect with Allie, but also like, subscribe, comment, follow, do all the things that you want to do to spread this word, because you are a part of this conversation, and an important one. As we keep raising our voices about this topic, we can start making massive impacts in the world around us and making inclusive spaces where we can feel seen, heard, and understood. And that is extremely important for all of us, every one of us. With that, I'll join you in the next conversation, because there's more to come.